Grace and peace to you this third Sunday of Advent. Amen. I don't think I tried a single piece of dark chocolate in my entire childhood. As a matter of fact, I don't think it was until my late 20s until I first discovered dark chocolate was even a thing at all. At the time, I moved from the East Coast and I lived in Berkeley, and somehow someone gave me my very first piece. It was from a local chocolatier company called Scharfenberger. And they were in West Berkeley. Any of you know Scharfenberger chocolate? It was on the forefront of micro chocolate making and closed its factories that gave tours in West Berkeley in 2009. Now, Scharfenberger chocolate is best known for its dark, bittersweet chocolate and can still be found online. Any of you fans of dark chocolate out there? Yeah? Okay. Looking for kids who are raising their hands. Okay, a few, yeah. How many of you have had any of the Ghirardelli chocolates too? Those are real popular. Those little squares have been my go-to treat of late. And one in particular is 60% cacao, if I said that right, and they call it their intense, dark chocolate. But kids tend really not to like dark chocolate. Some do, but most don't, and there's a reason for that. Nicoletta Liness, in an online article, wrote, "From birth, infants show a heightened preference for sweet tastes compared with adults. And this sweet tooth persists until mid-adolescence, around age 14 to 16, when a child's growth begins to slow. This early love for sweetness is common across primates, as sweetness serves as a general signal for high-calorie foods that would be key for growth, development, and survival." So kids have evolved to have a sweet tooth. And kids, please don't use this against your parents. But adults' tastes change for a variety of reasons that include aging and actual changes in our physical makeup of our taste buds and our sense of smell. It seems as we age, we have a newfound appreciation for things that are bittersweet. Coming off the heels of our Blue Christmas service last Sunday, bittersweet seems an apt word. Last Sunday, we deemed Blue Christmas, where we honored the many ways we experience grief and loss this season. Before worship, some of you brought forward a candle, placed it on a table up here at the front of the sanctuary. Then after the sermon, we had prepared 4 people, each who had experienced recent grief or loss, to come and be a part of lighting one of the 4 candles, each representing a nuance to grief and loss. Worship held space for these bittersweet moments. I used to think I was weird, being someone who sometimes really appreciates a sad movie or a melancholy song. I remember wondering if I was normal for feeling what I was feeling when heading off to college and later graduate school, and feeling and noticing a longing in my chest for home, a home that no longer really existed except in my memory and heart. Now, years later, I know I'm not the only one that feels simultaneously a sense of sadness and strangely a deep joy, reflecting on my own bittersweet moments of life. The people to which Isaiah speaks would have felt similarly. The prophet's words paint a beautiful picture of new life breaking forth in the midst of a dry place, of water in the desert, and flowers, and safety, and a path, a holy way for God's weary people to return to their homeland with singing and gladness. But these words are to a people who know sorrow deeply, to a people with weak hands and feeble knees. Isaiah says, "They shall obtain joy and gladness, and sorrow and sighing shall flee away." Inherent in this statement is the idea that the people were experiencing sorrow and sadness. And it's through these emotions that God is promising the other end of the spectrum, the emotional spectrum, which is joy and gladness. It's the light with the dark. It's the bitter with the sweet. They inform and shape each other. Psychologist Abraham Maslow, most known for his hierarchy of needs, wrote about the connection between a person's ability to experience ecstatic joy and a person's ability to feel deep sadness and pain. It seems even fundamentally in how we're made that sadness and joy are somehow mysteriously linked. I wondered about both the bitter and the sweet in the story of John the Baptist and Jesus, his relative, that we heard today. We know they were some kind of cousins and that Jesus went to John to be baptized and had a profound experience of God in his own baptism. But now John knows the bitterness of being imprisoned. And imprisonment often meant pain and death in John's time, and it will for him. It's perhaps from this bitter place that John's confidence in Jesus as the promised one, the Messiah, is shaken, and so sends people to Jesus to ask him, "Are you really the one?" Was it bittersweet for Jesus to receive this question about his purpose on earth from John? Jesus responds to John's followers saying, "Go and tell John what you hear and see. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor have good news brought to them." I wonder if the actual people Jesus helped, to which he's referring to here, the blind, the lame, the lepers, the deaf, the dead, and the poor, I wonder if each of these individuals cried tears of joy when healed and restored by Jesus. As a pastor, when I ask people to tell me about a time in their life when they felt closest to God, they often tell me about one of the most difficult experiences of their life. But in that experience, they also share that they felt God at work, close to them, holding them, drawing them near. It seems the bitter comes along with the sweet. As we age, our palates do actually change. We no longer crave just the sweet, but actually grow an appreciation for new flavors, and not just Scharfenberger chocolate. We can grow a new appreciation for our faith and our life and our struggles as places of profound growth potential, and for how love really works in us and for us. In preparing this sermon this week, I kept thinking back to a eulogy that was shared with me from a member here. It was the eulogy that Dave Lesher gave for his father in 2018. Dave himself was a council president here and at St. John's, and his father, who is speaking about in the eulogy, the late Dr. Reverend William Bill Lesher, his dad served God as a president of the Parliament of World Religions and as a president at 2 Lutheran seminaries, both in Chicago and in Berkeley, where I like to imagine that he tasted some Scharfenberger chocolate at some point in his life. Bill was a deep thinker, Bill Lesher, and remained curious about God and people up to his death. In his eulogy, Dave recalled that his father actually declined pain meds near the end because he wanted the full experience without his senses dulled. Dave said that his father was wondering deep things up until the end and shared this in his eulogy. Dad talked about his revelation that God is not a supreme being who stands apart from humanity, whose love is chiefly expressed by sending Jesus to live and die for us, but that God dwells in us. As he said in a poem he wrote last year, "It is my whole body, every aging organ, every cancer-filled bone, every muscle and molecule reaching out and up in joy and thanksgiving. It's only someone who knew the bittersweetness of life and faith that could write poetry like that. Dave continued, "The very last thing Dad said to me was that he had a new favorite word. He always had a new favorite word. This time he said his new word was immensity. Remember," he said with a big smile, "we are all going to the immensity." I feel like saying Scharfenberger to that or something. It's that deep. May your next taste of the bittersweet remind you of the immensity of this life of faith. May you, in your deep sadness and deep joy, know the immensity of God at work in you. And in your final days and moments, I pray, may you cherish the bittersweetness of returning to the immensity from which you came. Through Jesus Christ, who is our holy way to travel home. Amen.